Look, Five Nights at Freddy's is easily one of the more infamous franchises out there, especially for its long list of characters. There are quite a few characters in the FNAF universe, so many of which that if I were to dive into each and every one of them, I probably would be here for 5 hours. But I don't want to take that much of your time. There are a lot of characters out there, some not so important, some pretty important, and some that were abandoned. But there's one in particular that it stays true to my heart very much, and I really do love this character. And that character is Phone Guy, which seems to be have abandoned after just 3 games in the FNAF universe. Phone Guy, I think, was one of the more important parts of not only the FNAF lore, but the FNAF storyline. And today we're going to look into who the Phone Guy was, what the Phone Guy did, and what really happened to Phone Guy, and how a lot of people think that he's not important anymore and has truly been forgotten. Now, one of the biggest parts of the FNAF universe is the fact that a majority of it is a mystery. We don't get a lot of context for half of the things we see here. For example, people still can't get the entire FNAF timeline in order because it's so confusing and it's never really been revealed. Who was William Afton? Has it been fully revealed yet? No. A lot of things that are supposed to be key pieces to this franchise have yet to be revealed. But again, that's what adds to the mystery effect of this franchise. It keeps you guessing. It keeps you wanting to know more and more. Well, FNAF had that going with Phone Guy. We see originally appearing in the first Five Nights at Freddy's, and then obviously in the second one. And the third one, nobody really knew a whole lot about Phone Guy. Whether it's his identity, his purpose, where he's at, it's never really been revealed. People are still speculating, even to this day, who exactly the Phone Guy is. But like I said, he was just abandoned, not only by the FNAF universe, but by the fan base and by Scott Cathon himself, appearing in the first Five Nights at Freddy's, the second one, and the third one, making a brief appearance in the fourth one, not coming out at all in FNAF World, and not coming out in Sister Location, nor Help Wanted, Security Breach. Phone Guy seems to be completely abandoned by the FNAF universe. And that's crazy when you think about it, because I think that Phone Guy has a very big impact on the FNAF universe, especially in the first 3 games. I mean, his phone calls really did make a difference and gave us a lot of FNAF lore and storyline that we were not aware of. And we are going to get into all of that, and believe me, there's quite a bit of lore behind the Phone Guy. But let's go ahead, instead of jumping to conclusions, let's start all the way from the very beginning in the very first Five Nights at Freddy's with his very first appearance. So FNAF took a very odd turn whenever every night that you played in this game, the phone would ring and somebody would call you and talk to you, but you would never answer back. It's almost felt like he was talking to the thin air. Well, that guy was known to this day as Phone Guy, and I think some of his phone calls are actually very interesting, especially in the first game.
I actually worked in that office before you, finishing up my last week now, as a matter of fact, so I know it can be a bit overwhelming, but I'm here to tell you there's nothing to worry about. You'll do fine.
So right off the bat, we can tell that Phone Guy was an employee at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, working the night shift and had that office just like we did. So we can already tell at one point that he is indeed an employee.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for damage to property or person. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced.
So even right here, what looks to be a not important part of the phone call, which Phone Guy tries to skim over, shows that clearly something has happened at this establishment. If he's going to be talking about how a missing person report will be filed within 90 days and how the carpets and everything else has been thoroughly cleaned and bleached, clearly indicates that something at this establishment has happened at one point in time. And Phone Guy, for some reason, is just trying to cover up for it. Now, there's not a lot of context as to why. Maybe he's just trying to cover it and make it look like the job isn't as bad as what it is. Or maybe he is Purple Guy. We don't know. There are so many theories surrounding Purple Guy and Phone Guy that we're never really going to know of. But I think this is a really important part of this phone call and not a lot of people are talking about.
The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night, but do I blame them? No. So just be aware, the characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. Something about their servos locking up, they get turned off for too long. But then there was the bite of 87. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe. If they happen to see you after hours, probably won't recognize you as a person. They'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton without its costume on. Forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit. The only parts of you that would likely see the light of day again would be your eyeballs and teeth when they pop out the front of the mask. But hey, first station of the breeze. I'll chat with you tomorrow. Check those cameras and remember to close the doors only if absolutely necessary. Gotta conserve power. Alright, good night.
Wow, okay, so what a phone call that was, and we're just on night 1. Basically, what Phone Guy told us is that the animatronics are going to be walking around at night, and we need to try our best to survive while maintaining power. So make it to 6 a.m., don't die, and have enough power to get to that point. This is obviously night 1, and night 1's phone calls from here on out are actually pretty important parts of the game. Doesn't necessarily impact the story. In fact, the original Five Nights at Freddy's doesn't quite impact the FNAF storyline too much. Phone Guy really just hands out information that's directly associated to this game in particular and nothing towards the story. The next 2 nights are actually a pretty average phone call, just asking you how things were going, talking about this and that. But the next phone call that really does impact the FNAF storyline, in this game at least, is in the 4th night.
Hey, wow, day 4. I knew you could do it. Hey, listen, I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow. It's been a bad night here for me. I'm kind of glad that I recorded my messages for you when I did. Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm going to try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there. You know. Oh no.
Yeah, how bone-chilling is that? We literally just heard his death happen on the phone. That's literally one of the scariest parts of the FNAF universe, is hearing Phone Guy die. You know, it feels like we got somewhat of a connection with him in the first couple of nights, and all of a sudden, boom, he gets killed. Sounds like pretty brutal, but that's not even the worst part. The worst part comes in night 5's phone call. Like, what in the hell is that supposed to be? As if night 5 isn't one of the hardest nights in the game. Now we gotta deal with that creepy ass phone call to go along with it. That is literally, I guess, somewhat of the most perfect ending to Phone Guy in the first one. It's, you know, it's sad to see him go, but it's also creepy as hell, because what the hell just called me on this night? So, like I said, the original FNAF doesn't really have too much to do with the Phone Guy lore or storyline. Things start to get real in the second one, because the second one takes place, I want to say, in 1987, so that's never a lot of key pieces to the FNAF storyline happens compared to this one. Nothing really important happens, but we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get into the second one now and see what Phone Guy has to say in this one. Alright, so in all honesty, the second Phone Guy has probably the most important part of the timeline in the FNAF games, because the first one, obviously, like I said, happens in the 90s. This one happens in the 80s, particularly between the years of 1985 and 1987. It's really not factual which year it was, but the Phone Guy is important in this one because this is the one where William Afton finally starts murdering more children and the spring lock failures actually happen. Yeah, but we're going to get into that as we go through a majority of the phone calls. Let's just sit here and let's listen to the first one.
Hello, and welcome to your new summer job at the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Now, I want you to forget anything you may have heard about the old locations, you know. Some people still have a somewhat negative impression of the company. That old restaurant was kind of left to rot for quite a while, but I want to reassure you, Fazbear Entertainment is committed to family fun and, above all, safety. You're only the second guard to work at that location. his week but complained about conditions, we switched him over to the day shift. Mainly he expressed concern that certain characters seemed to move around at night and even attempted to get into his office. Now, from what we know, that should be impossible. That restaurant should be the safest place on earth.
So we learned quite a lot from this phone call. Number one, this is a grand reopening for Fazbear Entertainment. And the phone guy feels the need to tell you that Fazbear Entertainment is committed to, above all, safety, and even going as far as to saying that the new animatronics have a built-in criminal sensor in them so they can detect a predator from a mile away. This is indicating that at the previous location, clearly some suspicious activity was happening regarding the disappearance of children or just people getting hurt in general. And finally, we learned that somebody had worked in this position before us but complained about certain conditions and was moved to the day shift. Now, there are two characters that are listed in the FNAF 2 games: Jeremy Fitzgerald and Fritz Smith. Now, we can only assume that the conditions that they were talking about was the animatronics trying to get into the office and that he had a problem with that, so he ended up moving to the day shift. But that's pretty much the gist of the first night's phone call. We got a little bit of detail, a little bit of backstory about what was going on, but we're not even nearly done yet.
See, I told you your first night wouldn't be a problem. You're a natural. By now, I'm sure you've noticed the older models sitting in the back room. Those are from the previous location, and we just use them for parts now. The idea at first was to repair them. They even started retrofitting them with some of the newer technology, but they were just so ugly, you know? And the smell. Don't forget the music box. I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere.
So with this night, we've learned a really important detail, and that is the animatronics, the old ones that are sitting in the repair room. As he goes into detail about them, he said that was from the old location. They're clearly all withered up, but he points out one very important detail about them. He said the smell, and he cut it off. He left it at that. That's indicating that at least at some point in time, William Afton had ended up killing people and stuffing them into those animatronic suits, and that's a big reason as to why the original restaurant shut down, because clearly the establishment was getting kind of, worrisome that maybe somebody may be onto them, so they ended up shutting them down and going with a brand new face. And in my opinion, another very important factor of the phone call is what he said here.
Don't forget the music box. I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere.
This indicates that the puppet is clearly a lot more different than the other animatronics and is an actual, spirit possessing that's actually thinking, compared to the animatronics that are just going from room to room and can be distracted by the masks or flashing lights. This puppet is clearly not fooled by anything and knows exactly what's going on, and I think that's honestly a terrifying part. But if you think that's even crazy, wait till you hear the next night.
See, I told you you wouldn't have any problems. Did Foxy ever repair the hallway? Probably not. I was just curious. Oh, hey, before I go, I wanted to ease your mind about any rumors you might have heard lately. You know how these local stories come and go and seldom mean anything. I can personally assure you that whatever is going on out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment. It's just all rumor and speculation, people trying to make a buck, Our guard during the day has reported nothing unusual, and he's on watch from opening till close. Okay, well anyway, hang in there and I'll talk with you tomorrow.
So from what we can gather from this night is that clearly there are quote-unquote rumors going around that there are some suspicious activity going on even at the new Fazbear Entertainment Center, which clearly means that either the rumors are going on that the old location had deaths recurring in it, or there could be potentially children that are going missing even in this one. Now, this one is never really specified, but we can only assume that that's exactly what they're talking about. Now, this is the part where it's really hard to decipher whether or not Phone Guy is Purple Guy / William Afton, or if it's honestly just a random phone guy, because it seems like this guy is trying to cover up for what's really going on behind the scenes. Now, this was a question that I had come to my mind, but eventually, as this game proceeds and we get more phone calls, it starts to change to potentially this probably isn't actually William Afton.
Hello! Hey there, Night 4. I told you to get the hang of it. Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days. I don't I want to emphasize, though, that it's really just a precaution. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing. These things happen sometimes. It'll all get sorted out in a few days. Just keep an eye on things, and I'll keep you posted. Just as a side note, though, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronics side if you can. Someone may have tampered with their facial recognition systems. We're not sure. But the characters have been acting very unusual, almost aggressive toward the staff. They interact with the kids just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just stare.
So from what it seems like in this night, the rumors are actually starting to spread, and people are actually starting to speculate that there have been murders taking place at the establishment, and clearly the place is now going on investigation. As scary as that sounds, that is a very big part of the FNAF storyline, as what William Afton has been doing is finally starting to catch up to him. And clearly Phone Guy is starting to suspect that maybe the person that's doing these actions is also tampering with the new animatronics, as clearly they're starting to stare at just adults, indicating that these are children that are possessing these souls of the animatronics. Because so they play with the children just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just stare, and that is honestly really creepy. But it just keeps getting worse. That's why I love the second game so much.
Hey, good job, Night 5. Keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employee. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. A position just became. We're going to try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that. It was closed for years, though. I doubt we'll be able to track anybody down.
Now, this night's phone call really just feels like a warm-up for what's about to happen in this night 6 phone call. This one, it really looks like maybe William has been apprehended, or maybe he's under investigation himself and they decided to close the restaurant down just for precautionary reasons. I'm not really sure, but this next night, I think, is the turning point in the FNAF franchise.
Hello, what on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Wear your uniform. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself.
There are two possible outcomes from this phone call. Number one, William was caught stuffing children inside of the suits and was luring them with the yellow suit. Or William ended up dying in the spring-lock suit. A lot of people are torn on which one is true, and it's really hard to tell which one is true, but I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to sit there and say that it was William's death. I think William Afton's death happened, and that's why they ended up freaking out, wondering why everybody's over there. What sucks is that there's no context surrounding this one, but in the timeline, this game takes place between the years of 1985 or 1987, and that is at the time that William Afton died. So it's very hard to tell on whether or not what I said is true or not. But guys, I really think that William Afton died during night 6, which is absolutely crazy and just makes me love this game even more. This is honestly one of my more favorite FNAF games out there, if not my favorite FNAF, just because of the phone calls, the lore, the story, everything about it, I think is just perfect in this game. But now that we're done with this one's phone calls, we're going to move on to Five Nights at Freddy's 3's phone calls. Now, FNAF 3's phone calls aren't nearly as important as the second one, mainly because they really just break down the functions and everything about the Spring Bonnie suit, which I guess you could say is a pretty important factor. Seems as though that's what William Afton used to lure children in and kill them. And some of these phone calls do have important details in there, but believe me, they're not nearly on the same level as the second one, and let's start listening to them.
Some guy who helped design one of the buildings says it was like an extra room that got boarded up or something like that. So we're going to take a peek.
So I know that clip was very short, but that's really the only important part of Night One's phone call. The important part is that an anonymous caller came in and said there was a room that was boarded up, and we're going to learn throughout the remainder of this game that the room that was boarded up is actually the safe room.
But I have an even better surprise for you. You're not going to believe this. We found one. A real one. Gotta go, man. Well, look, it's in there somewhere. I'm sure you'll see it.
So what this phone guy is insinuating right here is that they somehow got into that safe room and then found Springtrap. Whenever he says, you're not going to believe this, we found a real one, and then whenever he says, look on the cameras, you'll see him somewhere, he's talking about Springtrap.
Now, these tapes will provide you with much needed information on how to handle / climb into / climb out of mascot costumes. Right now, we have 2 specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit.
So really the important parts that we found from this night is the fact that they found Springtrap. He's currently running loose in the office, and we're also starting to get into how to maneuver the Spring Bonnie animatronic suits. A majority of Night 3's phone call is just talking about how to use the Spring Bonnie animatronic suit. Don't let any moisture get on it. Don't breathe on it. Don't do this and that. So we're going to skip Night 3, but Night 4's phone call actually gets a little bit more spicy.
Use of the suit. Don't. After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures, the company has deemed the suit temporarily unfit for employees. Safety is top priority at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is why the classic suits are being retired to an appropriate location while being looked at by our technicians. I repeat, the classic suits are not to be touched, activated, or worn. That being said, we are free of liability.
So it's hard to tell exactly what he's referring to as something happened at the sister location, but we can only imagine that maybe somebody had gotten injured. This is definitely not William's death, because William did not die in here until 1987 in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So we can already rule that out of possibility. It's very unclear as to what they're referring to, but all we know is that they're now currently being unused, and definitely under no circumstances should these animatronic suits be used.
This is just a reminder of company policy concerning the safe room. The safe room is reserved for equipment and or other property not being currently used and as a backup safety location for employees only. This is not a break room and should not be considered a place for employees to hide and or congregate. And under no circumstance should a customer ever be taken into this room and out of the main show area. Management has also been made aware that the Spring Bonnie animatronic has been noticeably moved and would like to remind employees that this costume is not safe to wear under any circumstances.
So what we can gather here from this phone call, it seems like William had eventually brought in a child into the safe room and had also used one of the Spring Bonnie suits that are clearly not supposed to be used to lure those children into the safe room. And it's clear here that they're starting to get wind of that, and they're trying to tell us not to do that.
Hello. This is just to inform all employees that due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed at most locations, including this one. Work crews will be here most of the day today, constructing a false wall over the old door face. Nothing is being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault. Management also requests that this room not be mentioned to family, friends, or insurance representatives.
So this is the night that's really tricky, because there's no way to honestly tell why these safe rooms are being boarded up. The only plausible answer is maybe they figured out that William was doing that, putting children back there and killing them, because they also mentioned that you don't mention anything about the safe room to family, friends, or insurance representatives, which I think is very odd. There isn't a lot of context surrounding the third FNAF's phone calls. We can only assume what is obviously the most obvious part, and that, William was using these suits to lure children in the back and kill them. That's the only thing that we can assume. A lot of people originally thought that this is the game where William Afton ended up dying in the Spring Bonnie suit, and that's actually not the case, because if you look at the timeline, he actually died in the second FNAF using one of the suits. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap up this video for today. So this was the lost importance of Phone Guy, and from what I could tell by this video, if you guys are with me here, understand that he actually is a really important piece of the FNAF timeline. Whereas the second game's phone calls are the most important, the first one and the third one really just feel maybe not as important, but definitely big pieces to Five Nights at Freddy's. And it's a very underrated character. I really wish he wouldn't have been abandoned, and I'm hoping to not only see him in maybe future games from Scott Cathon, if he makes any more, but also want to see him in the awesome new FNAF movie that's coming out. That would be so awesome. But yeah, this video is kind of long, guys, but if you stick around to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Remember, if you enjoyed it, to smash that like button, considering subscribing, as I like making this content for you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.